The next thing we're going to look at is overlapping and edging. You are choosing one shape and creating it a minimum of 5 times. Now I would recommend doing this very, very lightly. I'm doing it a little bit darker than I normally would, just to ensure that you guys can see extremely well. You need to have at least 6 of your shapes overlapping and interacting with one another. If you'd like to do more, you of course can, but you need at least 6. Now, as you are working and shading, you are using values to establish the shapes of the objects. In the areas that they are layered, they're going to be darker, so this would be darker. Doing this helps establish that they're different, they're in different visual planes, and gives you depth within your image. I'm going to use a blending stump to help soften up some of my lines. And if you have one of these, you can definitely use one. You can also use a Q-tip or something along those lines, a tissue, if you don't want to get graphite on your fingertips. I don't love getting graphite on my fingertips, so I often will use a blending stump. Keep in mind though, these can sometimes gray out your drawings and sometimes smudge. So I'm going to go back in and erase a couple areas here. That eraser's in kind of tough shape, so it's ended up smearing some of my area. So again, go in and edit. Moving right along. This area is going to be a little bit darker, but I want this, let's say I want this triangle to be a little lighter than the first one I did. That's fine. That means that when you're shading, you're not using as much pressure. And when I go in with my blending stump, I want to have some cleaner edges. Now if you have a darker one, you can always clean it off with some sandpaper. Just using a 45-degree angle and literally sanding it off. But I probably wouldn't do it on my paper if I wasn't doing it so you guys could see. And you'd go back on all your triangle. And seeing as this layered area needs to be a little bit darker, I'd go in and reestablish this as my layered spot once more. And you'll be going through and doing that for each and every one of your shapes. We're using values to establish depth and layering. As you work, you might notice that your edging, it looks better on your shapes. If you have some of your edges a little bit darker, and that is also going to help establish that they are a three-dimensional object as you are working, and give them a little bit more form. All right. And eventually it'll look something like this.